that it's got name, age, occupation, that's what they know about that juror? Not even almost.
What if the world decided you were guilty before you even learned how to defend yourself? On Christmas night, a little girl was murdered in a quiet Colorado home. In the morning, the cameras arrived, and they never left. The case of JonBenet Ramsey, one of America's most haunting unsolved crimes, continues to captivate public interest nearly 3 decades after the 6-year-old beauty queen was found murdered in her Boulder, Colorado home. At the center of this enduring saga is her brother, Burke Ramsey, who was only 9 years old at the time of her death. After remaining silent for nearly 20 years, Burke finally addressed the speculation surrounding him in a high-profile 2016 interview with Drive Phil McGraw, a conversation that marked a pivotal moment in the public's perception of the case. Burke's sit-down with Dr. Phil aired in a 3-part television special beginning on September 12, 2016. It was the first time he publicly responded to theories and accusations that had hovered around him since his sister's death. Despite the case often being called cold, interest in it never truly waned. The interview garnered millions of viewers and quickly became one of the most watched programs of the year. Burke used the platform to firmly deny any involvement in JonBenet's death, stating, "I know people think I did it, that I killed her, but I didn't. I know I didn't." He emphasized that if any evidence had existed, it would have surfaced long ago, adding, "There's no evidence because I didn't do it." Dr. Phil questioned Burke about various theories, including whether he had ever had conflicts with his sister or committed any accidental or violent act against her. Burke unequivocally denied such claims, saying, "There was nothing, no violence, no accident, nothing like that between us." He also addressed the infamous ransom note left at the scene, claiming he had not studied it thoroughly due to psychological trauma, but was confident it was not written by his mother. "That's not her handwriting. I know what her handwriting looks like," he told Dr. Phil. While the program was presented as an impartial platform for Burke to tell his story, the timing was critical. It aired shortly after CBS released a documentary, The Case of JonBenet Ramsey, which reignited public suspicion by suggesting Burke may have accidentally caused his sister's death. The CBS special used forensic reconstructions and behavioral analysis to theorize that Burke struck JonBenet with a flashlight during a sibling conflict over a bowl of pineapple. This scenario, while never supported by legal or forensic authorities, led to an intense public reaction and prompted Burke to file a $750 million defamation lawsuit against CBS and the program's producers. The lawsuit was ultimately settled out of court in 2019 for an undisclosed amount. Dr. Phil defended Burke's behavior during the interview, which some viewers described as awkward or emotionally detached. He clarified that Burke exhibited signs of social anxiety, not guilt. "There's nothing in this interview, medically or psychologically, that suggests guilt," Dr. Phil stated, adding that socially anxious behavior is often misinterpreted under the public microscope. JonBenet was reported missing on December 26, 1996. Her parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, informed police of a kidnapping after discovering a bizarre, lengthy ransom note in their home, demanding $118,000. Later that same day, JonBenet's body was found by her father in the basement. She had suffered blunt force trauma to the head and was strangled with a homemade garrote. Her mouth was taped, her wrists were tied with nylon cord, and a white blanket was found over her body. The crime scene raised numerous red flags. There was no sign of forced entry, and the chaotic condition of the home led investigators to speculate the scene might have been staged. However, serious mistakes were made during the early investigation. Police allowed family and friends to move freely within the house before properly securing the scene, likely compromising critical evidence. In 1999, a grand jury recommended charges of child endangerment against JonBenet's parents, but then District Attorney Alex Hunter declined to indict due to insufficient evidence. For years, the case languished until 2008, when a significant development occurred. Advanced DNA testing conducted on JonBenet's clothing revealed the presence of genetic material from an unidentified male, someone who did not belong to the Ramsey family. This finding led Boulder County District Attorney Mary Lacey to formally exonerate John, Patsy, and Burke Ramsey and issue a public apology to the family. Though legally cleared, Burke remained a subject of intense speculation. Media outlets, online forums, and amateur detectives continue to dissect his actions and statements from the night of the murder. This speculation intensified after CBS aired its documentary in 2016, which revived theories about Burke's possible involvement despite the lack of any supporting physical evidence. In response, Burke filed his landmark lawsuit against CBS, citing emotional distress and defamation. His decision to take legal action was widely seen as an effort to reclaim his public identity after years of vilification. Importantly, Burke was never officially named a suspect. The interviews conducted with him between 1996 and 1998 were as a juvenile witness and were fully monitored and recorded. The 2008 DNA findings further strengthened his legal position. During his Dr. Phil appearance, Burke responded directly to all major accusations, stating, "Nobody will ever find any evidence because there is no evidence." This line has since become a key reference in his defense. In the years following the interview and lawsuit, multiple documentaries and journalistic investigations reevaluated the case, offering divergent narratives. One such effort was Joe Berlinger's 2024 documentary, Cold Case: Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey, which challenged the Burke theory. Berlinger emphasized the early investigative failures and questioned the media's tendency to fixate on the family. The film accused CBS of presenting speculation as fact and noted that public opinion had been dangerously shaped by unverified theories and sensationalism. Social media played a significant role in shaping Burke's public image. Platforms like Reddit have been home to thousands of discussions, often recycling unverified claims. Although no new evidence has ever emerged against Burke, the internet has kept him in the spotlight, often unfairly. Burke's extended silence and eventual withdrawal from public life are now seen as a natural result of overwhelming media scrutiny. By 2024, he was living a private life in Michigan, reportedly working in the tech industry and avoiding public exposure entirely. Burke's half-brother, John Andrew Ramsey, has become the family's most vocal defender in recent years. He has publicly condemned the media's treatment of Burke and emphasized the trauma it caused. In several interviews with major outlets like People and NBC News, John Andrew called for renewed privacy for the family and advocated for the use of new technology to reinvestigate the case. In a promising development, modern genetic genealogy has been brought into the investigation. Inspired by its successful application in cases like that of the Golden State Killer, the Ramsey family formally requested new DNA testing of samples from the original crime scene. In 2022, the Boulder Police Department and the FBI established a task force to reevaluate the case using next-generation forensic technology. By 2024, over 2,100 leads, 1,000 interviews, and hundreds of physical specimens were digitized and re-examined. This new approach centers on building genetic family trees from unknown DNA samples found on JonBenet's clothing. Rather than seeking a direct match, the technique identifies distant relatives of the unknown individual, narrowing down potential suspects through ancestry records. This method has revolutionized cold case investigations across the United States and is now considered the most promising path towards solving JonBenet's case. Boulder law enforcement has recently adopted a more transparent tone, acknowledging past mistakes and emphasizing their commitment to finally resolving the case. This shift is seen as a major turning point in an investigation that for years was marked by secrecy and internal conflict. Public confidence has cautiously increased as news of modern forensic advancements offers realistic hope for answers. Despite the technological progress, Burke's personal ordeal remains one of the most tragic collateral consequences of the case. Director Joe Berlinger and other investigative journalists had described Burke's media portrayal as one of the most egregious examples of trial by public opinion. Berlinger's documentary highlights how children caught in high-profile investigations often suffer long-term damage, regardless of legal outcomes. The film dedicates an entire section to the media's harmful role in shaping Burke's image without substantiated evidence. While the JonBenet Ramsey case has yet to be solved, its legacy transcends the crime itself. It has become a stark example of the intersection between investigative error, media sensationalism, and the enduring effects of public suspicion. Burke Ramsey's journey illustrates how, even in the absence of charges or evidence, individuals can be permanently marked by public discourse. As the case surrounding JonBenet Ramsey continues to be revisited with new forensic technologies, its significance now stretches far beyond the murder of a child. The impact of the investigation, media coverage, and public response has rippled into conversations about the nature of justice in the digital era, the legal protections of minors, and the enduring power of narrative in shaping public opinion. Burke Ramsey's story is not just one of a young boy caught in a tragedy, but of someone who grew up under the weight of national suspicion. Despite never being charged or officially named a suspect, Burke was tried in the court of public opinion, a process that played out across tabloids, primetime television, and more recently, social media platforms. In the years after JonBenet's death, Burke's behavior, body language, and even childhood quirks became fodder for speculation, much of it driven by a hunger for resolution rather than by evidence. The phenomenon surrounding Burke's public treatment reveals a dangerous pattern in modern media: the transformation of suspicion into assumed guilt through repeated narrative framing. Although investigative agencies did not find physical evidence implicating him, and in fact cleared him through DNA analysis, Burke remained a lightning rod in the public imagination. That persistent spotlight led to significant psychological and reputational consequences, the effects of which are still visible in his private and reclusive lifestyle today. The consequences of the CBS documentary The Case of JonBenet Ramsey were especially significant. Though the documentary was marketed as an expert forensic review, it straddled the line between hypothesis and accusation. While it never explicitly stated that Burke was guilty, its dramatized reenactments and selective presentation of evidence implied culpability. This blurred boundary prompted legal experts and media critics alike to question the ethical standards used in crime documentaries. Burke's subsequent $750 million defamation lawsuit set a major legal precedent by spotlighting how media portrayals, regardless of disclaimers, can cause real and measurable harm. By pursuing legal action, Burke reasserted his right to be treated fairly under the law. His case drew attention to the rights of minors in high-profile investigations, particularly when they are subjected to prolonged scrutiny without due process. While defamation laws had often been viewed as difficult to enforce in cases involving public figures or controversial narratives, Burke's lawsuit and its confidential settlement showed that media outlets could be held accountable for their editorial choices, even decades after the events in question. In parallel, the evolution of forensic science brought renewed hope to the Ramsey family and to observers seeking truth without speculation. The rise of investigative genetic genealogy, an innovative technique that triangulates DNA through familial relations, has revolutionized criminal investigations, notably used in the arrest of the Golden State Killer. This method bypasses traditional DNA databases and instead utilizes open-source platforms such as GMatch or Family Tree DNA to identify distant relatives of unknown suspects. The goal is to create genetic family trees that can narrow a suspect pool even from decades-old biological traces. JonBenet's case is now a high-priority candidate for this approach. With the formation of a multi-agency task force and the digitization of over 2,000 investigative leads, authorities are laying the groundwork for one of the most comprehensive reanalyses in American cold case history. Experts from private labs, the FBI, and the Boulder police are coordinating efforts in what they describe as a last window of opportunity to bring clarity to the crime. The urgency is driven by both technological momentum and a desire to provide closure to a case that has cast a long and painful shadow over an entire family. At the same time, national attention has shifted toward the ethical responsibilities of law enforcement, media, and the justice system when dealing with unsolved crimes involving children and families. One of the major critiques of the original investigation into JonBenet's death was the mishandling of the crime scene and the premature focus on the Ramsey family, without substantiating physical evidence. This focus, compounded by media frenzy, arguably distracted from viable alternative leads in the earliest and most critical stages of the investigation. With Boulder law enforcement now acknowledging past missteps and expressing openness to collaboration, the tone of the investigation has changed significantly. Officials have moved from defensive rhetoric to proactive transparency, signaling a maturity and institutional accountability that many observers view as long overdue. This shift has also emboldened the Ramsey family to speak more openly. John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, has continued to advocate for justice through both formal channels and media appearances, emphasizing that closure is not only about naming a perpetrator, but also about correcting the false narratives that have persisted for decades. JonBenet's case, and Burke's treatment in particular, has become emblematic of a broader cultural issue, the collision between justice and storytelling. In the vacuum created by an unsolved case, speculation often masquerades as truth, and those closest to crime can become lifelong scapegoats. This phenomenon has led to calls for more responsible media coverage in criminal cases, especially those involving minors and unresolved investigations. True crime media, now more popular than ever, faces increasing pressure to maintain ethical boundaries between theory and fact. As of mid-2025, hopes are high that the mystery may finally be unraveled through forensic genealogy. Law enforcement agencies remain tight-lipped about specific suspects, but their commitment to transparency and collaboration with cutting-edge labs signals a renewed determination. The Ramsey family continues to advocate for closure, and the public waits for what could be one of the most important breakthroughs in American true crime history. Looking back, the saga of JonBenet Ramsey and the years-long scrutiny endured by Burke stands as a complex lesson in the cost of speculation, the importance of proper investigative conduct, and the urgent need to balance truth-seeking with empathy. Whether justice will finally be served remains uncertain, but the reinvestigation offers something long absent in this case, a sense of momentum, and a hope that the truth may yet come to light. If this story moved you, leave a comment. Let's talk about what justice really means in the age of headlines. And if you want more deep dive stories like this, stories that challenge what we think we know, subscribe and hit that bell, because some truths take decades to surface. And sometimes the loudest voice is the one that waited the longest to speak.